Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday to you. June 2nd, 2025. I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride to work. And as you can see here, we've got the Justin Baldoni body double speaking out. Both sides are claiming victory. Some are saying this is a Blake Lively plant. Some are saying this is good for Baldoni, as the stuntman said that he was a friendly guy. We're going to dive into this and what this all means. Plus, we've got a lot going on. Mark Maron has announced his retirement from the WTF podcast, which is huge. That's one of the first biggest podcasts. It interviewed President Obama. You might remember it was real monumental, art that came out of nowhere, the long form conversation. So we'll be discussing that. And then more on this Ukraine drone strike that happened in Russia. They wiped out a giant battalion, what's it called? A bastion of planes and military equipment. And they did so in a very Trojan War style way. So we'll dive into that. And also, word on the street is that the U.S. has not been able to communicate with China. They're not picking up our phone calls. What does this mean as the sort of this like little buffer 90-day zone is about to expire? Will we go back to bigger tariffs? The game of chicken continues. So lots to get into. We've got all these stories and more coming up right now on The Rush. Well, it was 16 years in the making. Can you believe that? 16 years Mark Maron ran his podcast out of a garage, and then he just drops on episode 1648. He just drops that he's going to be ending the podcast. Let's have a listen.
All we knew is we were going to do it every Monday and Thursday, and there was no way to make money. There was no way that we knew how to build an audience or anything. And it was crazy. We were doing it in a garage at the beginning that was just a garage. It was filled with junk. And it slowly evolved into the show that became what you listen to twice a week. 16 years we've been doing this. And we've decided that we had a great run.
So there it is. They're done. Hey, all good things must come to an end, right? And to think, wow, we committed to 2 episodes a week. It's like, Bubba, I'm doing 2 a day, okay? I'm in my Las Vegas hotel room. I got to check out in 45 minutes, and then the upload speed's not that good. So we're making things work. I'll be back tomorrow morning I'll be back tomorrow afternoon with my regularly scheduled program. Tomorrow morning, I have my interview with Reality Steve, where we talk Bachelor in Paradise. We talk the Clayton Eckerd versus Laura Owens court case and some other tea. So you'll definitely want to stick around for that interview. We did it in Steve's hotel room. We're here for his Fan Appreciation Week. All right, Italy's Mount Etna volcano erupts with a massive ash cloud and a lava fountain. Oh my gosh, have a look at this. This is wild stuff.
Italy's Mount Etna is erupting. Take a look at this. Images of lava and clouds of smoke shooting into the air. This is a famous volcano on the island of Sicily. Officials say, as of now, key phrase, as of now, no immediate risk to the local population.
Now, listen, nobody's more dramatic than the Italians, and God bless them. I hope that they're all okay, but I can just imagine, Mamma Mia, he's running around, flipping pizza dough and stuff. Okay, all right, don't get mad at me, the Italian Americans. You guys are great. We love you. But I'll tell you what, no one's going to let you know there's a volcano like the Italians. They're going to be loud about it. So either way, I hope everyone's safe, and we'll be monitoring that. And speaking of natural disasters and natural beauties, from one to the other, 13 straight states across the U.S. tonight could witness the Northern Lights. Now, I missed them last time they went around. Tonight, I'm flying back to Tennessee. I think we'll be in the zone where you can see them. We'll have to see if the Bortle scale is good. That's the scale where you can see how far into the sky, depending on light pollution and cloud cover and things like that. But get ready if you're one of these 13 states.
13 states across the U.S. may be able to catch a glimpse of the Northern Lights tonight. Now, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which forecasts these types of things, has given us the helpful information that the Northern Lights are most likely to be seen in the northern U.S. They've got the best chance up there. It includes states like Idaho, Vermont, Wyoming. The trend there is northern. The administration says the best chance to see them is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Go to NOAA's website for the most up-to-date information.
Well, so stick around tomorrow. I'll let you know if I saw the Northern Lights. We'll have to see. All right, so we're going to get into a few different Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively stories because some interesting stuff's going on. This was posted yesterday in the Team Justin Baldoni subreddit. Are the advocacy groups being rewarded to show support for Blake Lively? This is where it gets interesting because we had an advocacy group. We won't get into the details of it, but as we covered this last week, they were showing support for Blake Lively because they were a group that was that lobbied the government of California to create a law that would establish that you can't sue somebody if somebody sued you for some Me Too style issue. And by that, I mean no retribution lawsuits, which makes it very complicated because if someone sues you for the reasons that are not, like say you didn't do anything wrong, you should be able to countersue, right? That's what holds us all into place, that we each have the power to defend ourselves. But what happened with Blake Lively is this advocacy group is hitching their wagon to her saying, on behalf of victims of the Me Too movement, we need to make sure that Baldoni's side isn't allowed to countersue her, which is ridiculous, right? Because he hasn't been convicted of any crimes. But the reason for the law is a good one. It's just that judicially speaking, and I'm no expert, people say it's just not going to hold up in court. Well, now we're finding out that different law firms have donated to different causes, which, it's good if you're a law firm and you donate to causes. It's good if you do pro bono work, which is, free charitable work for different organizations. But now the question is, if your side of the aisle is advocating for Blake Lively, and you've donated possibly to an organization that supports victims, and now that organization will feel beholden to speak up for victims and you say, hey, listen, we donated $500,000 to your organization. Why don't you make a statement on behalf of Blake Lively? You're going to go, I guess I have to. I don't know. So here we have just a list of who's donated to who. And it could be all coincidence, right? Sloan's law firm donated $10,000 to Child USA. Hillary Nappy, board member, Child USA, worked at Sloan's law firm 9 years ago. Listen, these people are all high up in their respective world. So there's a lot of money that's exchanged back and forth. So you can't necessarily assume that there's something sinister happening. Lively's publicist law firm made donations. California Women's Law Center. Ezra Hudson, Lively's current lawyer, is on the board of directors of the California Women's Law Center. Kathy Wonderly, partner at Lively's law firm, is also a board of directors. And, does this mean that if they've got that sort of pull that they can convince the public that one side is, to say the least, there's a conflict of interest, to say the least. Okay, well, coming up next, we've got a bizarre story. It could be a big nothing burger, but maybe it's not. That being the body double from It Ends With Us speaking out. Now, I have a little bit of perspective I can bring into this. I've done body double work. It's not as glamorous as people think, but we'll get into this story next. Well, this is a bit of an interesting one. Justin Baldoni's It Ends With Us body double reveals what Blake Lively was actually like on a tense set. Now, the words that we use to describe some of these crew members are going to be very interesting because a body double is different than a stunt double. A stunt double, a stunt man, a stunt double, or a stunt person. So in some cases, you're doubling someone, like you might be doubling Leonardo DiCaprio, or you might just be some random guy on a motorcycle doubling nobody. Either way, you're getting paid a base rate that is the same, if not more than, a principal actor, which is a lot of money. A body double might just be somebody who's walking by the frame that's supposed to be dubbed as Justin Baldoni, as he was the director of It Ends With Us. There's plenty of times where he might have to be on camera, but he can't be. And what they'll do is, if there's a film shot that's shooting over the shoulder, as it's called, over Baldoni's shoulder onto Blake Lively, and you only see like this dirty part of his shoulder, and I say dirty, by that I mean out of focus, they might use a body double to stand in and be there instead of Justin Baldoni. So very different. And in that case, you probably can imagine these aren't, even though they are close in proximity to Justin Baldoni, they're not exactly character witnesses to how they are as a person. All we'll get to see is how they act on set. So Justin Baldoni's body double is sharing insight in his experience working on the film. Thomas Canestraro alleged that there was a tense atmosphere on the set. And by the way, every movie's got a tense atmosphere. You're trying to do 20 hours worth of things in a 12-hour day. So absolutely, that's going to happen. There was some discomfort from everybody, he claimed to the Daily Mail in an interview published Sunday. And there he is, very jacked man. Good on him. He says that they were supposed to be on set in New Jersey for only 5 days, but due to production issues, he was there for 2 weeks. Again, very normal stuff. The stunt double okay, so now he's a stunt double. Body double, again, now he's a stunt double. Again, I don't know which one he is. Stunt double further claimed that Lively, who is suing Baldoni for harassment, appeared closed off during the final weeks of filming. Again, no surprises there. She was closed off when I worked on Gossip Girl. How long ago was that? 15 years ago. So no surprises. He explained that he had an extremely easy time working with Lively on 2018's A Simple Favor, but he noticed that her behavior changed when they shot It Ends With Us. Oh, interesting. So he's worked stunts on. So it looks like he's got a good pedigree of work here. Not just a body double, but more of a stunt double. Again, words matter. Canestraro noted that while he thought it was cool that Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, came to the set, he realizes the Deadpool's actor's visits may have been connected to Lively's emotional state at the time. A source close to Lively told TMZ that it shouldn't be surprising she was closed off given the harassment allegations she made against Baldoni. Again, so some people are saying that this was Blake Lively's side trying to seed that there was some tension going on, but I don't see it that way at all. He told the Daily Mail that Baldoni, who directed the film, was extremely friendly on the set, but they haven't stayed in touch. It Ends With Us, which came out last summer. Okay, so it doesn't look like we've got any other information about this, but the idea that Blake Lively was tense while Ryan Reynolds is there doesn't exactly show anything positive for Blake Lively's camp. If it's true, one of the rumors, if it's true that Ryan Reynolds was furious at Justin Baldoni after seeing the dailies are footage shot that day. Not everything that was, ended up being used, but, the different takes, the different, you'll be able to see the director, Baldoni, working with Lively. Sometimes they'll roll a long take, because they shoot on digital, no longer film. So it's easy to just keep rolling cameras. Either way, if it's true that Ryan Reynolds was maniacal, jealous, and all these things of a younger, attractive Justin Baldoni, then maybe when he's on set, Blake Lively felt that she had to be a certain way or it added more stress or whatnot. Again, we are stretching beyond belief because we don't know, but if it comes time where they're looking for character witnesses and witnesses about what was like going on set, maybe we'll see more from this stunt double. All right, well, that's it for your entertainment news right now, but hold on, there's something more dramatic happening out there. This is wild. You guys remember the story of the Trojan horse, right? This is the modern day Trojan horse. This is incredible. Ukraine, who of course several years ago was invaded by Russia. Russia, the much larger country, was supposed to come in and take control of Kiev day 1, day 2, right? Everyone was going to flee, but that's not what happened. President Zelensky stood his ground. They have fought for years bravely. Every man has been drafted. Every adult man, Ukrainian, has been drafted to fight in this war. And now Ukraine targeted this Russian airfield and wiped out a large supply of their planes. Look at this.
Attack on Russia. Incredible video coming in, capturing the large-scale special operation. Ukrainian drones and missiles targeting 4 Russian military airfields across the country, destroying some of its nuclear-capable bomber fleet on the ground. Overnight, Russia attacking Ukraine with 479 drones and missiles, marking one of, if not the largest overnight aerial attack of the war. This comes as leaders from Russia and Ukraine are expected to return to the table for a second round of peace talks tomorrow.
I think this is great that Ukraine's going on the offensive right now. They're at the stage of this war where Vladimir Putin is just continuing to destroy so many young men's lives, innocent men that have to fight for their country. They don't even know why they're fighting, or by propaganda, they think they're on the good side of the fight. And here's just more footage, unbelievable stuff that they were even able to get these drones across the borders. Have a listen to this.
Blown to pieces in explosion after explosion in Ukraine's Operation Spider's Web, targeting 5 Russian air bases across the country. The closest, about 300 miles from the war's front line, the furthest, more than 3,700 miles away in Russia's Far East. More than 100 FPV, or first-person view drones, were hidden in the roofs of these containers, smuggled into the country.
This is going to be studied in history books. This is the Trojan, obviously the Trojan War. They brought this big horse in, and then they gave it to them as a gift. It went through the gates, and then all the men came out of the horse like just ready to go, and they fought, right? And this is it. They smuggled them into these containers, and then the roof lifts off. These drones come out and then just bomb their military. And by the way, when you talk about the war in Gaza, this is what I'm talking about. You don't need collateral damage in today's world. These drones have precise bombs. They can go directly to where they need to go and wipe out targets. We do not need to be killing innocent lives. There it is.
The roofs, retractable, opened remotely, mere miles from each base, making it one for the history books, said Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Блискуча операція проведена.
A brilliant operation was carried out, he said, and the people who helped us are safe, extracted from Russia before the operation. He also claimed Ukraine's office for this attack was inside Russia, next to one of the regional headquarters of Russia's FSB, likened to the FBI. No one was reportedly killed. But in 2 bridge collapses over the weekend, at least 8 people died and 89 others were injured near Russia's border with Ukraine.
All right, so the amazing that nobody died in this attack. Now, they're saying this attack did $7 billion in damage to Russia's planes. Have a listen to this.
Making and is considered one of the most audacious attacks in modern warfare. Dubbed Operation Spiderweb, Ukrainian attack drones have hit targets across multiple military sites within Russia. And according to Ukraine's intelligence service, damaging more than a third of Russia's strategic cruise missile carriers, causing $7 billion in damage. It wasn't easy to pull off. The drones were smuggled into Russia, hidden inside portable wooden containers on the backs of trucks. On Sunday afternoon local time, the roofs of those opened and 117 drones were launched at Russia's long-range bombers, including the supersonic Tu-160 aircraft.
And by the way, this is good for anybody who doesn't like warfare, because the ability to see Ukraine, relatively smaller military, obviously compared to Russia, able to defend themselves and use. I mean, this is like little giants, right? This is David versus Goliath. Ukraine is able to use wit and inside sources and smuggled containers to get just enough bombs in place to damage these planes so that they can't be used against Ukraine, but also against us, right? Russia's been threatening to have these supersonic missiles where they can attack people from the other side of the world. So very good to see. There has been a lot of questions from people due to the last presidential election about what side Americans should be on. You're seeing certain people side with the Russians. They'd rather have the Russians in office than Democrats. We've seen people literally wear these shirts, and it's absolutely ridiculous. This is good for democracy. Ukraine has a lot that's not perfect with its country, but they are fighting for their lives. Excuse me, valiantly fighting for their lives. And I think it's so honorable to see. And this has been just a devastating war. And to have a little bit of momentum on the offensive, it's like, get Russia out of their territory. Enough is enough. More on the story. Wow, we just have so much content here.
Ukraine says it's hit potentially a third of Russia's long-range bombers in this extraordinary, daring and sophisticated drone attack. Some of these drones launched from mobile homes, the roofs opening, releasing a cloud. Some of this halfway across Siberia, staggering how far the Ukrainian security services teams were able to penetrate inside Russian territory. And these aircraft hits, some of them still using propellers, will be easy to damage, hard to repair, and we may see in the months and weeks ahead damage to Russia's nightly ability to inflict horror to Ukrainian civilians in the nightly raids they undertake. But there's damage to Russian pride too, and the notion that it's an invincible, huge giant that essentially could go on forever in this conflict. And while nobody expected these peace talks in Istanbul happening Monday to really yield enormous results, it is likely that these attacks will echo in the minds of those inside the Kremlin, particularly Russian President Vladimir Putin. But ultimately, it's a lift for Ukrainian morale, damaged in past months from relentless bad news, and a dent in Russia's military pride.
That's why when President Zelensky of Ukraine was reprimanded in the Oval Office by Trump, a president who avoided going to war by saying he had bone spurs when he didn't. When that went down, I just couldn't believe that our country was upset with Zelensky because he wasn't wearing a suit, even though he says during times of war he's not going to dress in these clown suits, right? I'm telling you right now, it's not anti-American to look at Zelensky and see a leader of a country that is walking the walk and not just talking the talk. And that's what people want out of the United States. Now, frankly, the United States has placed these tariffs on countries, right? The 145% on China. It's down to 30%, but again, it's at an incredible level. And they expected China to come groveling, bending the knee to negotiate with Trump, and they're just not doing that. They're not picking up the phone. This is like if you are dating somebody and you're like, it's my way or the highway, and then the person's like, we'll take the highway, and you're like, wait a second, no. That's what this is. Have a listen to this.
What specifically is President Trump saying when he says they're violating an agreement? Because it was the one you negotiated in Geneva earlier this month. And what's the consequence for that?
Well, we will see what the consequences are. I'm confident that when President Trump and Party Chairman Xi have a call, that this will be ironed out.
How ridiculous is this? It's June 2nd. Well, when they get to talking, let me tell you something. They are going to iron this out. It's wrinkled to hell, and it needs more than an iron. It needs a steam clean. It needs a lot of things. But this idea that when they talk, it's going to be solved. You just wait. Listen, Trump was able to do this when he wasn't in office. Well, this war would have never happened if, all of that. But now you're the president, and these tariff deals have not been, resolved. And they said they're going to do 10 new trade deals a day. They've only done one in 3 months. And people want to know, where do they need to relocate their business? What rules do we need to play by? It's absolutely a disaster if you're the United States right now, because China is showing a roadmap where they can just ride it out. And they will. They said before they would ride it out for several thousand years if they needed to. They are not budging on this one. All right, here's an interesting clip I wanted to share. Here's Representative Dan Goldman discussing the masks that ICE agents are wearing and why they shouldn't wear these masks. Have a listen.
Agents. I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years right there. I worked with the Department of Homeland Security. I worked with ICE agents. I worked with Homeland Security's investigations. I have never seen any plainclothes officer wearing a mask. And I asked them, why are you wearing a mask? One person told me, because it's cold. I asked him if he would testify to that under oath, and he walked away and wouldn't respond to me. Another person admitted that they're wearing masks so that they are not caught on video. And my question to them is, if what you are doing is legitimate, is lawful, is totally above board, why do you need to cover your face? Law enforcement officers do not cover their face. And in fact, the Trump administration is cracking down on universities for allowing protesters to wear masks.
It's kind of like this. You ever do something on Halloween? You ever bend your morals on Halloween? You're hooking up with somebody because you're dressed as Zorro. When you put a mask on, when you hide your identity, you might do things that don't have consequences, like rob a bank or arrest people that you shouldn't arrest, or have a nice threesome with a guy dressed as the hamburger costume. What I'm saying is, it is wrong that they're wearing masks. There's no accountability. And just like Representative Dan Goldman said right here, if what you're doing is not a problem, take the mask off. If shame is the reason why you have the mask on, reevaluate why you're there. And again, these ICE agents, as we reported in a different video, they're set to receive bonuses for bounties that they're getting, depending on how many people they can deport. It's sickening. It doesn't belong in the United States of America. All right, well, we'll be back in the morning with my interview with Reality Steve. You're going to want to stick around for that. Until then, we'll see you later. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.